Hello, and welcome to Totally Schway Flipside, a podcast about whatever the hell I want it to be about. My name is allegedly Mary.
Mm-hmm. And I can verify that your name is Mary.
Okay, good.
But my name is Luke.
Allegedly.
No, there's no allegations.
No.
It's true. The allegations are true.
Yeah. I heard on the reason why I'm saying this joke is because I've been watching a court documentary type thing, and one of the lawyers, who by the way gets millions of dollars, they're that type of lawyer, and like allegedly his name is blah blah blah, and I'm like, no, that is his name.
Yeah, just look at his passport,
Yeah.
his driving license.
Yeah.
That's what his name is. Shut up.
So today when I've been thinking about the cats, I'm like, just silently to myself, allegedly that's Gilgamesh. How are you, Luke?
I am recovering from a nasty cold that I had last week that is still lingering.
I know, tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, we both are, but I'm feeling much better this afternoon.
Yeah. I have had bad sleeps and a bad cold, but I think we're on the up and up. And now that spring is on the horizon, we might not be getting that many more colds. I don't know. Science. I love science, but science always gives me the worst colds and viruses.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything that you want to say about today's topic?
Which is?
It is why 90s cartoons were so influential.
Correct.
Yes,
yeah, I
just had second take, by the way.
I had to check my mental notes then. I was like, is that what we said? It's basically what we said.
Yeah. It's going to change like 3 more times by the time we finish.
By the end of it, we'll be talking about Cabaret. Right.
Oh my goodness.
I've never seen Cabaret.
Oh my, guys, we've got to stop the podcast.
Yeah. I had a friend at school that was always singing songs from Cabaret, so I didn't avoid it because of that, but I feel like I know enough about it through osmosis that I don't need to watch it.
That's a lie. That's not true. Okay, so we all know the 2 big TV shows that you and I like. Well, really like from the 1990s. So let's get those 2 out of the way before we talk about any other influential ones and why we think they're so influential. Batman.
Yes.
And X-Men.
Yes, I think those were 2 big turning points.
Yeah.
But I think perhaps we could have a little history discussion first.
There's also a third one that's quite... Well, for me, it was quite influential because I think a lot of my adult thinking, I thought an adult thought like that because of this cartoon.
Okay. Spawn. Okay. Yeah. Well, interesting. Okay.
Little did I know that clowns don't actually follow you around most of the time.
Speak for yourself.
And you don't have to be a creep that follows your ex-wife.
Speak for yourself.
All right, so let's have a little history lesson.
Yeah, so I think you can't really talk about why 90s cartoons were so
rad
and influential.
So rad and turbulent.
Yes, without looking at what came before. So if you think about cartoons in the 60s and the 70s, they were very kind of low budget, almost like
wholesome.
Like
the Jetsons, the Flintstones.
Yeah, they were
the He-Mans. Well, that's 80s.
Yeah, that is 80s, but that is one I will bring up. Yes.
Yeah.
But they were very much like low budget entertainment designed to fill up the TV slots and also entertain kids as well.
Yeah, to occupy the children.
Yeah, because Disney movies were very popular, and once television started in, when was that, the 50s? I have to double check everything, but they started to recreate the movie experience on the small screen at home, and part of that was also doing cartoons. If you think of the 1960s Marvel cartoons, they were literally like motion comics. They would take the old Jack Kirby comics and they would just put voiceovers to them and give them like really crude basic animation. I had a VHS of Thor episodes and the Incredible Hulk, and I thought they were really cool at the time because I was like 5. What did I know? And then no, they are cool because they were Jack Kirby's art is very striking, very bold, very dynamic, and I mean the voice acting was very like what you might call theatrical. By that I mean like very over the top, as if they were trying to make sure that the people sitting in the cheap seats could definitely hear what they were saying. Um, Big, bold gestures with their voices.
Okay, I think a lot of that, I think, and again, this is just my opinion, one of the reasons why you have cartoons like Superman, for example, which is a great example, and the stuff that you're talking about is a lot of the people, these actors, had just come from radio.
Yeah.
So they're used to they're not used to the vibrance of TV in terms of like the cartoon actually telling a story as well. They're used to themselves having to, relay that story through their voice acting. And it's such a shame that a lot of stuff doesn't. There's a period, I think, from about 1965 to about 1990 in my mind that I just feel it just didn't get me.
Yes. And the thing is, to add on to your point, what you were saying just then about, the relative inexperience of the medium, you also had the writers who were trying to convey everything that was happening through their words, not thinking that the images could convey what was happening. They'd always say, "Oh, I can't break this bar of iron." Oh, when you don't actually need to say that, you could show them like struggling, trying to bend the bar, and nothing happens. And they could have a confused look on their face.
Also, this whole thing was new, not just the TV. It was the fact that their stories aren't just going to be in books and newspapers that are, readily thrown away. Let's be honest, because
they were.
Really comics and newspapers, not a lot of people kept them.
That's right.
Books, yes, but I mean, when you had a TV, you could have like 20 people in your living room.
Yeah.
And these are new stories to you. Like every story in this cartoon or show that you're watching is brand new. It's not like a lot today where a lot of our stories are just constantly recycled. There's no problem in that. Absolutely no problem. But in this, like you said, that bar of iron, they are doing that for the first time.
Yeah.
And they're having to like teach themselves and then teach other people how to bend this bar of iron with just your voice.
Yes.
And actually get that across.
Yeah. And the important thing to note is that the people that grew up watching these shows, by the time of the 1990s, they were the ones that were working in the animation industry. They had grown up watching this stuff. They were fans of it. They had become passionate, and they had seen the limitations of the medium, how it had been implemented before, and they had gone, right, we're going to push the boundaries. We're going to take this seriously because I'm a 35-year-old man and I really care about animation. I want other people to care about animation as well. But because, I'm kind of jumping back a little bit here, but because so many children grew up watching cartoons and they would spend a lot of their time doing it, that's when regulators got involved to make sure that the cartoons didn't include anything unsavory to corrupt the children. So you ended up with, as you were alluding to earlier, these regulations saying that certain things can happen in stories and other things can't. You can't have any swearing. You can't have any real violence, imitable violence. You can only have stories that end with a positive social message. It's why episodes of G.I. Joe or He-Man always had the character at the end saying, "Now remember today's lesson, kids."
So my big thing with cartoons is literally what you've just said is I have a huge problem from 1960s to about 1990s because censorship was obviously still new because all of these things still brand new, not even 50 years old at this point in time, having the censors for televisions and what ad people want and marketing and all of that.
Yep.
Ad marketing, same thing. I just feel that it was too, I use this word too much, but it was too wholesome. the stuff that was out, I didn't feel I connected with because that wasn't my real life. And I've always been the type of person, like a realist when it comes to things and cartoons and stuff like that. Whereas I want it to have little bits and pieces of real life, and a lot of those, like the G.I. Joe and Captain Planet and stuff like that, although they weren't bad, they were actually great for their time, but it just was not something that I felt got the generation of Mary.
Yeah, completely.
Are we the Gen X?
Well, us?
Yeah. What
No,
are we?
we're after Gen X. I mean, we're the millennials.
Oh, our parents were Gen X, weren't they?
Just about. Well, actually, I don't think my parents are.
I think
they're just between.
Yeah.
But anyway, but something that changed. So basically, after 20 odd years of these kind of rules, 25 years, you had people who grew up with these cartoons who loved them but wanted to push the boundaries, and so they started integrating into the networks, and then they started pushing the rules and started seeing what they could get away with. And one cartoon that I don't think enough people mention is one that aired. It's a very famous cartoon. I'm surprised people don't mention it and its influence. Aired, I think, the first episode in 1989, might have been 1988. It was The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah. But the thing about stuff like The Simpsons and Batman and the stuff that basically came after 1989 is exactly what you said. We're kind of in tune with each other. We didn't even talk about this beforehand. Yeah. But the people that grew up watching those TV shows are now making this, but they're also the ones that grew up knowing what the TV people wanted. So now they're basically knowing how to, fix the system. They know what the advertisers want, but they also know if they give them just enough of what they want, there's that little bit. Like leeway. There was a good example of this. There's a Simpsons episode where Homer is grabbing a gummy bear, I believe, off of a woman's behind.
Yes.
That whole episode was so different for me to watch. I can't even remember what year, but what you did was you had the funny stuff, you had the Bart stuff, you had the Homer stuff, you had all this funny stuff, but then you had something really, really important.
Very serious.
Yes, and very serious. But you got that, and you actually saw him take the gummy bear off and everything. And that was, for me, in a cartoon, the first time that I actually saw like an adult cartoon character doing something maybe they're not supposed to do in that sort of sense.
Yeah.
But they found the funny out of it because it was a gummy bear on her behind, but it still got the message.
Yes, it did.
And they pushed it just enough.
Can I share my favourite joke from that episode?
Yeah.
It stuck with me my whole life ever since I first saw it years ago. So Homer's in the shower and he slips and falls over and grabs the shower curtain, trying to steady himself, but he falls over, and the paparazzi get pictures of him. And Kent Brockman is on the news saying Homer Simpson sleeps naked beneath a plastic sheet because he believes it gives him sexual powers.
See, it's just like that. Like, they were allowed to say things like that because they were giving the ad people and the network exactly what they wanted. Yeah. So that little bit they just pushed through, and I wholeheartedly don't believe that you can say that the writers weren't brilliant.
No, of course they were. They were, absolutely. And when the show was first pitched, it was kind of pitched as being very similar to the Flintstones, because the Flintstones was very popular. It drew in a big adult audience as well, because it was basically an animated sitcom, but set in the prehistoric era with silly slapstick stuff that the kids could laugh at too.
Yeah.
So The Simpsons was kind of billed as that, and then it kind of developed into its own thing. And then also in 1989, you had Batmania with the first Tim Burton movie, which, again, they took a children's property like Batman and turned it into an adult movie that was massively successful.
I know we're onto the 80s now. I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but I do want to talk about is it Hanna-Barbera? I always say it wrong, don't I?
Hanna-Barbera. It's not Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah. For the the longest time I would say that, even though I heard it um a lot when I was younger, because I believe it was Cartoon Network from about 1 o'clock in the morning, either midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning until about 7 a.m. They would play old Hannah stuff. So you had like Flintstones, Jetsons. Sometimes they would do Looney Tunes. Obviously, that's something different, but that would kind of be this sort of stuff. So when I was super young, I've never been able to sleep properly. So I would be able to watch these things, and I was so bored because I felt like, why am I watching this when I could be watching, I don't know, Spawn? Because that's kind of around the time when Spawn had first come out or whatever. But I just didn't like them at the time. And things have changed. Whereas I don't necessarily love those cartoons, but I appreciate them because I understand that there's a lot of stuff, like Family Guy, like, I like Family Guy and that whole universe. We wouldn't have Family Guy without the Hanna-Barbera stuff,
Yeah, of course.
because didn't Seth MacFarlane work for them?
I don't know that he did.
I don't know, but it's either he worked for them or he's like a huge, huge fan.
Yeah, he clearly is a big.
Yeah.
He's a big fan of The Simpsons as well, as they often make jokes.
Yeah. But let's actually talk about some TV shows, some
Well,
good.
Can I just quickly say, to finish a point I started earlier and I kind of drifted off a little bit, but you had the Tim Burton Batman movie
Yes.
is another big reason why broadcast standards changed, because it was a children's property, most commonly associated, with Biff, Bam, Pow, Adam West, and they turned it into like a sort of serious gothic adult movie. And then the animation team at Warner Brothers, which were newly formed, by the way, because Warner Brothers had closed down their animation studio a long time ago. And when they tried to woo Steven Spielberg to come and make movies for them, he said he would only do it on the condition that they started up their animation department again, because Spielberg loved the classic Warner Brothers Looney Tunes cartoons. But basically, this new team were able to use the clout of Steven Spielberg, the success of Burton's Batman, to basically say, look, people expect a certain amount of darkness and grittiness from a Batman property now. So we need to go there. We're not going to push the boundaries. We're not going to be obscene, but we are going to be more mature. And we'll go as far as we can. And as a result of that and its success, you had a lot of other studios pop up and try and do their own Batman. You already mentioned HBO's Spawn.
Do you see what this is starting to get to that thing that I was talking about, where you're starting to see recycled material.
Yeah.
And when I say recycled material, I am not necessarily just talking about the storyline. What I'm talking about is kind of recycling an idea, and then it starts out of something like that, and then now it's there's a TV show on Netflix about a Saturn.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, a couple months later, there's going to be on Jetflix, let's call it. There's going to be a show about Saturn and Jupiter, because they've got to do a little extra.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is exactly what happened. So, a little plug for Bob Miller's Batman the Animated interviews. He has a number of interviews with the crew in Volume 1 of the book, and one of the later interviews is talking to Eric Radomski about what he did after Batman. Because when they'd completed their first order for 65 episodes, they then got an order for 20 more episodes. And I think it was once they'd completed those that Eric decided that he was going to move on and do something else, because he didn't want to stay at Warner Brothers. He did a little bit of work on Freakazoid and then decided to go. But he was kind of poached by HBO, who explicitly said to him, the success of Batman has shown us that we can do more adult animation.
Yeah.
And we want HBO to be known for adult animation. So he was headhunted. A lot of the creative team also went over to Disney, who wanted to do their own slightly more mature show, and that was Gargoyles. You had, and Marty Pasco, who was one of the story editors, one of the main story editors, actually, he was picked up by Marvel to go and work on Spider-Man. And irony of irony, Marty Pasco's a long career writing comic books. He brought on a number of prominent Spider-Man writers to work on the animated series. Irony of ironies, Avi Arad, I believe it was Avi Arad, who was the owner of the Spider-Man license at the time, said that those guys clearly didn't know anything about Spider-Man and he fired them. Which is just crazy, absolutely crazy to me. Complete massive tangent there.
So let's actually
rein me in.
Yes, let's actually talk about some of the 90s cartoons that were influential to us. I know, like I said, there's 3 that I think I like Spawn the cartoon more than you.
Yeah.
But when I think of 90s cartoons, I think of those things where I know, because while you were talking about that, I was like, what would somebody else think about 90s cartoons and stuff like that? They'd be like, was it Tiny Toons? And stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I just was never the one. I didn't really get into a lot of, thank goodness for streaming and DVD, because I always wanted to do, I was a computer person. I always wanted to be on the computer and not necessarily just on the internet. I just wanted to, tinker with it. And I ended up doing a lot of that rather than, I know nothing about computers, but I sure did tinker. So when I talk about 90s influential stuff, I mainly talk about X-Men, Batman, the animated series, and Spawn. Mind you, now that I'm older and I've seen more, I know about STAS. I love Superman. I'm actually rewatching Superman for the however many time I watched
Probably
it.
about 8th time.
Yeah. And I love like Justice League and stuff like that, but that was more 2000s. I don't know why I was that sort of kid that just wasn't, it wasn't it for me. Whereas when I watched Spawn for the first time, I remember it was it was special, I guess, but I never really, when it came to cartoons, there was no like issue with us watching any type of cartoon. So when we watched that with my stepdad for the first time, I was blown away because I actually like something. And first off, I like something that he liked. And it was so moving because I remember I saw half of an episode. And it was the first half of, I think it was the 3rd episode that ever, first season, all of that. And I remember we watched it and I just was like, shoot, I need to go to grandma's this weekend. And I need to watch the rest of this. And I did do that because sometimes they would do like 2 episodes or something like that. And I ended up watching it and it was just wonderful. And to me, my mind ended up growing faster than it should have because of, events that happened in the 90s and, family and stuff like that. So I finally found something that I didn't necessarily relate to, but I understood. And that was the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt special to me. It's like when I watched Batman, I understood what they were talking about because I hated it. And I would get so confused when TV shows would talk to me, the viewer, as a child. Because in my head and in my family, like, once you reach a certain age, you're not really, like, stop talking like a baby. Stop doing this, stop doing that. You're not supposed to act like that. You're supposed to be an adult now. Da, da, da. I'm like, I'm 7. So, yeah, I'm just mumbling now, so I do apologize. But I'm trying to get the fact that a lot of the stuff that I watched and grew up with and that I liked as a kid was because of my circumstances. Whereas other kids just were able to enjoy watching a TV show or a cartoon and just enjoy it for it just being what it is as a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I always had to find some sort of deeper meaning until I was an adult, and then I started to actually be able to enjoy and not stress out and stuff like that. So does any of that make sense, or is that
Yeah,
just like
no, it does make sense. It does make sense.
we could cut this?
No, it's fine. Spawn was obviously wildly inappropriate for you because when that came out, you were less than 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But
I understood the storylines of Spawn. I know I understood the storylines of a lot of other cartoons, but it's the fact that I was like, Todd is talking to me right now when he's, Todd McFarlane Spawn.
When he asked you if you'd ever seen a dog looking up.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a sunflower bend at the sun? Yes. No. I understood that. Whereas like with kids things, I always just felt, why are you doing that? I'm stupid, but I'm not that stupid. I always felt that, and maybe that's something to do with me more than anything else. I just felt like, I don't know.
You didn't like the way they spoke down to you.
Essentially.
Down to you.
Whereas like watching X-Men and Batman.
Yeah.
No, those were real world problems. Those were problems and problem solutions that could potentially happen in the real world.
Yes, very deliberately so.
Yeah, and I loved it because it was so, especially X-Men.
Yeah, me too.
X-Men just felt right. It got to the point that I actually played the video game. I think it was on the Nintendo. The Super Nintendo?
Yeah.
I think
so.
And I didn't really play a lot of games that were like a part of something, but I played the games and I enjoyed them and all of that, and it was just wonderful because they didn't talk down to me. The problems, obviously being a queer person, I've seen things, in real life happen like they do in that show, and I don't know why, but the music just always plays in my head at certain, like when certain emotions that I have, that song plays in my head.
How often do you wake up and hear previously on X-Men?
I don't.
Just me then.
Thank goodness.
Every morning.
Yeah. I don't think I'm articulating myself very well today, so I do apologize.
What you're saying makes perfect sense, and you're right. It's the fact that during this period in time, the creative teams felt that they could tell more sophisticated stories that didn't talk down to children, and that's why they were successful. And then that also led to the explosion of adult cartoons, also things like Stripperella, which Kevin Altieri worked on with Stan Lee.
I've never I know that I must have seen a little bit of it, but I don't think I've ever watched like a whole episode of it. But it's something that I would like to, although I don't know if I would like it.
It was very like tongue-in-cheek comedy show. From what I recall, I think I watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes of it, maybe at most. I recall enjoying it well enough.
Is it on Max?
I don't know, actually. I've not looked it up.
Well, can we mention something?
Yes.
I never actually... I kept thinking I watched it, but I think I just blacked out. Heavy Metal. Was that
Heavy
80s?
Metal. I think it was.
That... I never watched that all the way through, but my stepdad really liked that. And does it have boobies in it?
Yes.
Okay, that's I wasn't really when it was around my stepdad and my mom, for some reason they didn't want us to see boobies. But when I was at my grandparents' house, I could watch, I could watch Skinamax if I wanted to. But
and I did.
I mean, sometimes they had like really good movies on there. Had no skin in them whatsoever, but but yeah, I always forget that because I think I've just blocked that in my head, but I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, another cartoon from the 90s. I mean, I could talk for a lot about X-Men because I loved X-Men. But another one that I really enjoyed that I didn't actually see very much of until the 2000s was The Tick.
Oh,
I
I
thought The Tick
like
was
the
very funny.
pick.
And that
Yeah.
was another thing you saw the rise of these comedy cartoons, like Tiny Toons, as you mentioned, and Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. Even Elmira got her own show at one point, the Elmer Fudd style girl from Tiny
Yeah.
Toons. And obviously there was the Tick as well. My favourite character, and he's not really particularly good, but I just love the joke in his name, which is the Midnight Bomber who bombs at midnight. It's just that was always stayed with me.
You mentioned something that made me think of this because when I think of the Tick, I think of a house that I lived in with my grandparents. Um, Shout out to anyone in Oklahoma. Um, so in the mid 90s, I believe, maybe early to mid 90s on MTV, they had this thing called Liquid Television.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot believe I almost forgot to talk about one of my favorite cartoons, Eon Flux.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was Eon Flux. I believe the head. I'm looking on their Wikipedia now to actually remember everything that was on there. But I loved when that came out because they did have something like Daria and stuff, but I wasn't really the biggest fan of Daria because I think because my cousins liked it, I was like, I'm not gonna like it. I'm gonna be the pain in the ass that likes cool things. But that had a huge impact on me because I was watching like I think it was like midnight or something, and I think they were doing like reruns of it. And when I saw Eon Flux for the first time, I gagged in the best way possible. I loved it so much. And to this day, it is still one of my all-time favorite cartoons. And I always forget, but it's one of those things where it was different. It was sexy. It was some of the episodes just didn't have a ton of talking in it. It was all about the animation, and that sort of animation to me was just beautiful. And it was about Eon Flux. It was about the lady.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the cartoons, a lot of the time it was, you had the guy that was the superhero, or you had, you know, um the guy that had his friends and then all that. And then I finally saw a show that had like a lady and she's kicking ass. She's kicking ass. And I think I think that's the name of it. Um and obviously I had Beavis and Butthead, but I didn't like Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, I'm never really a big fan of Beavis and Butthead. I'm sorry, anyone that really likes Beavis and Butthead.
Again, I think it's because my mom and my stepdad watched that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm talking a lot more than Luke today.
I felt like I said a lot at the start, but I keep feeling the need to cough every like 30 seconds, so I end up turning away and trying to cough away from the mic. Hopefully it's not disruptive.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the Wikipedia for Liquid Generation, and I'm just like, I know the ones that I really liked, but a lot of these. Oh, there was the duck one. I think it was the duck, and I remember the duck in the chair, like the office chair. Please comment and tell me what that is if you know.
Duckman Private Dick.
Is that on here?
No, I was just thinking about it.
It might be.
I think it might have been.
I'm gonna watch that on YouTube if they have it on YouTube.
I could be wrong. I'm
gonna Google that.
Okay.
So.
Just make sure you spell that properly, otherwise you're going to get some weird Google results. The drama.
Shut the front door!
That was it.
Oh my god, yes!
There we go.
I didn't love like all of that, but I did love that particular scene, and I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's why the people listen to this podcast. They want the mystery solved live on the air.
They're like, why are we listening to this specific episode?
Yes, let's listen to a woman Google search something.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were other cartoons as well. Like I think in the late 80s there was the Mighty Mouse cartoon that was a bit subversive.
Never saw it.
I wish I could remember. Bruce Timm worked on it. That's how I know of it.
I was born in '88.
Yeah, well, I was born in the 80s as well.
I'm joking. That was a big joke. I was born in '88, but it was a joke saying Luke's old.
Yeah, well, I feel it sometimes, but particularly when I'm sick. Ralph Bakshi, that's his name. I knew it would come to me as I stalled. He's like an obscure animation. Would I say expert? I suppose so. But he kind of did these like weird erotic cartoons, and then he decided that he wanted to go mainstream, and he tried to buy the license for Mighty Mouse because he thought he could. And they started making the show before he'd even secured the license. Thankfully, he was able to get it. But they kind of did this, as you said before, Mary, about kind of sticking within the guidelines, but pushing the boundaries as much as they could. I've seen a couple of clips from Mighty Mouse, and I thought it was actually quite funny in places. It was something I put on my mental list to watch later, and I just completely forgot about it.
Just like your video game graveyard list, as I like to call it.
Yeah, my pile of shame, which is all digital now and consists of several hundred things that I will probably never play. Cool.
Yeah. So other than the ones that we've talked about, I know you mentioned Freakazoid. Did you like Freakazoid?
Yeah, it was okay. David Warner, who was in Freakazoid, he loved it. He said it was one of his favourite animation jobs. He can't remember working on Batman as Ra's al Ghul, but he remembers every time he went in to record Freakazoid, and it was with much of the same people.
Oh, Animaniacs as well, because that was I remember them all like having a little of the Freakazoid character, and the Animaniacs having like a little thing in the tower. They were just like playing video games or something.
And Animaniacs, I felt, was kind of one of its strengths, which was also one of its weaknesses, I think, is that it contained a lot of like Hollywood in jokes.
Yeah.
And if you weren't at all up to date on movies, a lot of the jokes would fly over your head completely. But at the same time, as someone that was very much up to date on the movies and who these actors were and what movies they'd been in, I loved it. You know?
I did get a good giggle out of Animaniacs from time to time.
One of my favourite jokes in Animaniacs, and I don't know if Christopher Walken is like this at all, but they're at a Hollywood party, and Christopher Walken is just really enthusiastic to talk to people, and nobody wants to talk to him. And the punchline is him going, "I'm Christopher Walken. Why doesn't anyone want to talk to me?"
Oh no! Talk to you, Christopher Walken.
Yeah, I knew Christopher Walken from Batman Returns, so I was like, ha 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 ha. I know who that is.
We can't talk about this because I think we're going to get to some comments soon, but we cannot talk about this without talking about South Park.
Yes.
I have thoughts about South Park, and I liked it at the beginning, but then I feel like I think after season 5, maybe 6, I just did not care for it anymore because it was too try hard. I felt like they were making jokes that they felt, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just so try hard, and I felt I see the first 5 or 6 seasons as a completely different show than what I see the now South Park, because it's just so it gave me the ick after a while. The stuff about the Tom Cruise and stuff like that I around that time as well, I watched a few episodes until I moved over here, and then I watched more of it. I just was like, this is like, I know you're making these like really quick, and you're like, manufacturing these very like on the go, but I'm so tired. At that point, I was just so tired of hearing about Tom Cruise, and it really felt like they couldn't come up with anything else.
So I think I like South Park. I think some of their humor is very it's very on the nose, let's put it that way. But I think that a lot of people that like South Park don't realize that Eric Cartman is not someone to be admired, and a lot of people don't seem to get the joke that he is an awful little racist.
I think a big thing for me was I have known that I've been queer for most of my life. I completely understand that. And I don't feel that my family ever had a problem. It was one of those things like, but we don't care, which was, I'm very fortunate with. But watching something like South Park, I think it was the one and only time I was watching South Park and I heard one of my brother's friends talk about a joke, and they were talking about lesbians.
Mm-hmm.
And they made it out as if that was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just disgusted. Mind you, at this point in time, I was probably 14, 15 years old. And I wasn't actually watching the show, but I heard what was said. And I didn't want to associate with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel bad for that part of my life, but other people thought it was.
Yeah.
I remember him saying like it was gross or something, and then but the first time I didn't actually run my mouth. I went home, and I took some time to think, and I was like, that's not great. And I think it wasn't until I moved over here that I watched more of it with you. Mm-hmm. But they had kind of gotten over that little hurdle. They've come back to it, though.
Well, there was a point in time where Trey Parker and Matt Stone were deliberately trying to be provocative and offensive and actually trying to get South Park cancelled, I think, because they've kind of had enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is they keep getting renewed.
And picked up by different places as well.
Yeah, I think they made a deal with Paramount to provide them with a whole bunch of specials.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe this is part of their humour, but as part of the press release, they said something along the lines of, for God's sake, now we've got to keep making more.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with liking South Park, but I think because of the type of teenager that you can read my book when it comes out if you want to hear about my teenage years. But the type of teenager that I had been associated with did not need that show to start saying those things. It was just an excuse for them to do that. And I think that's what left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily the show itself. It was the attitude that it gave people around me, because they were very unsophisticated when it came to manners.
Yes, and that's kind of what I was getting at. People didn't realise that, South Park was mocking them.
Yeah.
Apart from when they were like really blatant about it.
But I mean, because it's a really funny show. It is a really, really funny show. And in some places when it's not just killing a joke for a whole season, like the Tom Cruise thing. But it's so funny, especially those earlier ones. But I thought we had to talk about it because I just felt
South Park was very late 90s though, wasn't it? And I think it only existed because these other shows paved the way for it.
Yeah, but I think I don't know how to get how I feel about South Park in a better way, because it's not the worst show in the world. It's actually quite funny. I think just because I associate it with something else, that's what is bad about it. Because I haven't watched it. I don't like the whole so the Tom Cruise thing. I'm not the biggest fan of Tom Cruise. I don't know the guy.
It sounds like you're the president of his fan club, Mary.
But I also don't like. I think this is one of the big things for me is the Meghan Markle stuff.
Oh.
I feel that whatever you think of somebody, that's for you and you. But you don't have to make it like a complete like TV show that's just bullying one person
Yeah.
for.
I mean, I don't know if you probably haven't seen much of the press coverage of her attempts at raising money for the California fires. They're like she's getting roasted in
I
the
know, and
press over here, and it's despicable.
and
They're saying like,
yeah,
"Oh, she's just doing this to virtue signal and so on." Like, for God's sake, what are you doing to help people?
yeah,
Nothing. You're just pumping out toxicity into the universe.
yeah.
You awful parasites.
Again, I don't know her personally.
No.
I've liked her in Suits, and I think she was in Coyote Ugly. But I just feel the bullying
Yeah.
when it comes to a real life person. Like if it's like another cartoon character or something like that, fine, do it. It's funny. But when you're doing it to a real life person, that person has feelings. That person is very aware, and it becomes the joke is getting very old.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why they do it is because she was an outsider brought into the establishment of the British royal family. She took one look at how they did things and was like, why the hell are they doing that? This is so antiquated. This isn't right. We shouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And, she caused the problem, and they decided to throw her to the wolves to send a message to the other younger royals. And there is also an element of racism to it as well. Of course there is.
Wait, are we the Meghan Markle fan club?
No. I mean, I don't know much about the woman at all, but I can see that she gets piled on because she takes a look at the establishment and calls it out on its.
Yeah, and I guess that is the thing I don't like about South Park is the bullying, because it's just too much for me. I can't think of another show that I've watched that does it to the extent. I mean, didn't Tom Cruise end up dead on the moon?
Yes, he did. I did find that really funny.
And with a whale and Kanye West.
Did Kanye West die on the moon?
I can't remember now.
I just they had it was just I can't remember the specifics of the joke, but it was something like Tom Cruise saying, "We can do anything we believe in if we just try hard," and it cut to him being dead on the moon. Just that harsh cut really made me laugh.
By the way, I don't I don't think I have to say this, but I'm just gonna say it. In terms of like what all of these people believe in, I don't really subscribe to a lot of it. I feel that if you, I'm moving my chair by the way to get closer to this because I'm being serious. I feel that if you want to believe that you can do anything, that's possible. But me, I know that I would not be able to go in a is it fighter jet?
Yeah.
My ass would be passed out. You would just see like a little mushroom cloud, like, oh, yeah, she's gone. Whereas, you have, Tom Cruise does have some talent.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be able to go on a fighter jet. I'd be like, nope, 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 nope. And Meghan Markle, she used to have this website named Tig. I think it was called Tig. It was really great. Let's go to the comments.
Yeah, before she trashes the place. So these are the comments on the last episode where we talked about Smallville episode 1, and we haven't actually gone back to Smallville. Oh no. But the first comment we have is from Ryan Jones, who says, "I am only a casual Superman fan, and I have no interest in Smallville. And I was thinking of skipping this episode this week. But anyway, well, thanks for sticking around."
Thank you. And I'm gonna be honest with you. If you don't watch the show, like the Smallville, I'm just gonna say this: by the first episode, you're probably not missing that much.
Gasp! Look, Mary, we haven't watched all 10 seasons.
I will eventually watch more of it. I know I will, because I want to make this a show that comes back. Smallville 2.
For next week's episode, as someone who was born in 2001, the way I could only watch 90 shows as a child was watching reruns and old VHS tapes that I had bought at the charity shop when I was little.
I find the fact that you were born in 2001, is that what they said? Offensive. As an 80s person, and the wrinkle that is starting to form on my forehead, I find it offensive that you're so young. Love you still.
Luke, have you watched the Britain's Got Talent clip of Batman singing an opera version of Let It Go from Frozen? It's one of the funniest and most bizarre things I've seen, and one of the comments on the video said somewhere, Mr. Freeze is watching this, kicking himself for not thinking of it first.
Let's pause this and watch it.
All right, we watched it. That is a thing that exists.
I didn't care for it. I felt like he should have done. Well, he has more talent than I do, but he should have like done something with a cape, like a swish, swish, swish. You know, like in the old gymnastics, they used to have the ribbons.
Mm-hmm.
He should have done something like that with like
Mm-hmm.
the yeah.
I was saying to Mary, if I was a judge on that panel, I would have hit that button within about a minute. But anyway, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Continuing Ryan's comment, who says, Luke, you forgot to read the lines from the last episode, did I? I'm sorry, but I can't think any more bit characters because I don't always know the difference between main characters and bit characters. Well, if you think about them in the credits, the main characters are always at the top, and the bit characters, they tend to show up in the credits as guest starring, or basically they're not in every episode. They appear every now and then, but they're memorable.
Ryan, you can be like me and just whatever you want a bit character to be, it could be, because that's basically what I did, because I saw bit characters like you would see bit actors or something in like the old movies, where occasionally they would be, you know, like in a series of movies they would be there. I say like less time than the stars of the show. Anyone that has less time than the stars of the show could be a bit character.
Just to conclude Ryan's comment, he says, also, I've got a bad great-aunt too, Mary. In fact, I've only seen her once because my entire family hates her because she abandoned her elderly mother at her time of need before she died. And she was a horrible mother and woman. On a happier note, I also have a good great-aunt, and she's living in America, and I hope she's doing good.
You know what? By the way, I was just kidding about you being offensive earlier. I hope you got the joke, because sometimes I do jokes and they don't come across well. I think that my great aunt is still alive, according to her Facebook. But you know what? I rarely think of her, and the person that I do think about is I mean, I wouldn't say she's like the best aunt, but she was one of my favorites. My what would you call her? I'm still gonna call her Aunt Robin.
Yeah, I mean, she's still technically your aunt.
Yeah.
She's the mother of your cousins.
Yeah. But yeah, I honestly, having her in my life was a very good thing and sometimes a very bad thing. But she's always going to be one of those people that I just go back to, huh?
All right, next we've got Big Mikey P, Michael Andre Parlin.
Mikey P.
I haven't seen him use his backup account for a while, so I guess he's changed his ways and doesn't get suspended anymore.
Yes.
Excuse me.
You better get yourself a drink of water.
Yeah, I'll need to, actually, after this comment.
I could read it out.
Yeah, no, you couldn't.
I want to try to say some of the names.
All right, try reading that then.
Which one?
This one, the comment that's on the screen.
Smallville's a 2001 show? ? I thought it was a 2007 show. All things considered, Big Mikey P. I had to Google it. And Wikipedia. I believe it is 2001.
It is 2000. I'll just continue the comment. And I'm not into Dawson's Creek either.
Same.
Must say, can understand if people only watch Smallville for Michael Rosenbaum's amazing role as Lex
Obviously.
Luthor, which got an awesome nod in Jail used the Great Brain Robbery, not unlike how Gundam Wing fans watch it more for chivalrous anti-villains.
Can I ask a question?
Trays? Yeah, go on then.
Gundam.
Or Gundam.
Gundam.
I don't know, Gundam or Gundam.
Whichever.
Tomato.
I have a friend, I haven't talked to him in a long time, that occasionally on his Instagram, he posts stuff about a show. Is Gundam just a one-thing show, or is it a group of things, or is it a genre, if you will?
I think there are lots of different ones.
Okay.
4 minutes and 26 seconds. Oh, God, it's going to be a long one. Well, it is the pilot episode. Try seeing the rest of the season and then the show. Babylon 5, Stargate SG-1, and even Star Trek The Next Generation. It got better when Riker literally grew a beard. Hee hee. Fans who got past the first season can attest to the grind. The cool kids' opinions are more likely to not age well with the average fad. Naruto plus Shippuden, Battlestar Galactica 2003 and Animorphs are not as flawless as they thought they were nowadays. 11:58. Why ask me? I haven't encountered a Kryptonian turned scarecrow in my silly life. Yeah. 16:16 saying dated ain't taboo. Okay.
What was it?
Maybe I said it was. I don't know. I don't remember anything I say. My short-term memory's shot to hell.
You've had so much cold medication.
Well, it's just in general. I can remember things that happened like 20 years ago, clear as day. You ask me where I was and blah, 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 blah.
I could remember every time someone wronged me. Every single time.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm writing a book.
18 minutes and 7 seconds. For me, I was more into Western animation and Japanese anime. 24 and How I Met Your Mother were or still are alien to me. But Samurai Jack and Naoki Urasawa's Monster were and still are like the near daily gospel. Still can admit that I share Mary's preference for movies back then, as seen with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, the first 2 Shrek films, the Pirates of the Caribbean original trilogy, and the golden age of Disney Pixar films, to the point that I don't understand how Cars, a personal favourite, doesn't have as much popularity as Up and Monsters, Inc.
I've never seen Cars.
Oh, well, that's why. You're to blame, Mary.
It's on Disney, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. 25 minutes and 26 seconds. I think the cartoons did better than the live action shows because they got the right amount of mature restraint because of surprisingly helpful standards and practices. Adult works, he puts in quotation marks, seem to end up getting to sickeningly excessive levels of hypocritical immaturity, crudely put.
Word.
27. And people still wonder why I feel grated rewatching X-Men and Spider-Man the animated series, and yet sing hallelujahs during or after rewatching the DCAU reboot and Beast Wars Transformers. The aforementioned Samurai Jack, Greg Weisman's Gargoyles, the Powerpuff Girls 1998, Avatar The Last Airbender, Kim Possible, and so on, to hang with obsolete soap operas, apart from a few exceptions out there, of course, like some British long runners. Oh, Big Mikey P's a secret EastEnders fan.
Frank or Phil?
What's the comparison for?
So, like, out of those two, you can only pick one.
That's going to be
Frank or Phil.
Frank Butcher.
Obviously.
Sorry, Steve McFadden, but
Obviously.
Mike Reed's not with us anymore, so maybe I shouldn't pick him. Anyway, it doesn't matter. God's forbid when you guys encounter Mr. Mix's Piddlick bastard son in this show. No, I'm not kidding. Just look at Watchtower Database's Mix's Piddlick video for some clarity. Yes, I did see that. For an aside, heard some people would prefer ending the show on season 5 because moving to Metropolis changed things a bit too much. Oh my god, spoilers! He moves to Metropolis!
Excuse
Clark Kent! Clark Kent goes to Metropolis!
Michael! Could you spoil Superman?
It's not just
It
Superman.
actually hurt my throat.
Oh dear.
Oh, good lord.
I'm not sure my voice is going to survive this comment, but let's see.
How could you spoil it?
Meanwhile, she said same people may have skipped most of season 4's absurdities. Sounds a bit like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, surprisingly.
Which is coming back.
33 minutes and 15 seconds. Surprisingly, still a better Crisis on Infinite Earths iteration than the Tomorrowverses, though it may not be saying much. 34-42 can concur with Luke. However, it may become a 7 out of 10 in case future episodes flesh it out to the point that it embetters the pilot on rewatches. I think rewatching the first episode of Steins Gate after finishing their entire show, you'll end up loving it in spite of the possibly dry first impressions. 39-59 sounds cliche, but Avatar The Last Airbender is a must recommend. The Legend of Korra is optional, you're on your own there. 40-13 Nickelodeon actually, but yes, Andrea Romano nicely worked on it and The Legend of Korra. 41-40, the same way Deus Ex 1 impressed me by good word of mouth and hearing its music way before I finally bought and tried it many years ago. 42 minutes and 9 seconds. Then again, Reboot may be hard to access in the UK due to some reasons. Just look at how the 90s local broadcasting had problems for behind-the-scenes trivia. On the other hand, Beast Wars could be watched on the Transformers YouTube channel for free as of this writing. For a review Starlight, I don't know, perhaps there's subbed DVDs of it, if not, sites like Crunchyroll. We'll see to the critical reviews of the latest Wallace and Gromit film first, just in case. Don't want to be surprisingly let down as Ghostbusters Afterlife again. What? Why need to watch that movie and Frozen Empire when the original film already got the real Ghostbusters Season 1 and 2, plus Extreme Ghostbusters as fleshed out expansive sequels? Speaking of Feathers McGraw, he's also in Reboot for some reason. Okay. Project A-ko, now that's an 80s anime film quadrilogy I haven't checked out in a while yet. We'll watch them subbed instead when I can binge them though. 49 minutes and 14 seconds. Duck Dodgers is quite a deep cut there. Highly recommend season 1 and 2 and maybe try to avoid season 3 because of it feeling too different to the usual. Blame Paul Dini not being involved with it anymore. and undoing the season 2 finale, which was supposed to be the original series finale. However, I think 2003's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles up to season 5 and the Turtles Forever finale crossover film needs more love compared to 2012 and 1987. 50 minutes and 23 seconds. He's put this in musical emojis, but I'm not going to sing. Deception, disgrace, he is not one of us. 54 minutes and 1 second. Nah, Mary, you don't nasally sound like Kill la Kill's Nui Harime. You're under arrest, Yorikoko Nikaido, Cardcaptor Sakura's Mei Ling Lee, or Keion Yui Hirasawa. 5613. Good Total War taste, Luke, and I wouldn't be surprised if you're into Rome and Shogun too. I don't remember mentioning Total War. I haven't played a Total War game in a very long time.
I don't know what that is.
It's like a strategy game on PC. We'll also recommend Strongholds and Stronghold Crusader Rise of the Nation and Earth Empire 2. Big Mikey P, I think you're starting to hear things. Hearing what you want to hear.
Oh, I have a question for Big Mikey P. Totally unrelated, but I was talking about tinkering on my old computer. Did you, when you were growing up, did you have an encyclopedia on your computer that showed you, like, in like 2 seconds, what bread looks like when it's molding? I don't know why I have wanted to ask you that question for a while, but I think out of everybody, you would understand what I'm talking about because you seem like the type of person that would also remember something like that. Because I've asked you that question before, and I don't think you had that on your computer. So I'm asking one of my other friends.
Okay.
Mikey P.
57 minutes and 3 seconds. I think I know him. Recently on headlines, he's cried out for help due to not finding much acting work in these trying times. I don't know who we were talking about.
We should listen to that because we sound like we're not.
It would take so long to go back and listen to all these timestamps. 58 minutes and 42 seconds. It is a clever concept and product. Even got a proper end game because it was popular enough so to not get canned. Can highly recommend Firefly and Serenity and a few Dark Horse tie-in comics, even if anyone ain't a fan of the aforementioned Buffy and especially Joss Whedon the man. I doubt the show and finale movie can be very easy to put down.
Is Nathan Fillion on Firefly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, I can argue that it getting canned helped it more than it should, since later Whedon stuff can get too outlandish to the point of audience alienation. As time goes by, looking at you, season 6 and 7 of Buffy. Oh, Jesus. Okay, 1 hour and 28 seconds. BFE. Not a fan of the Serious Sam game. TFE and TSE classics for the win. I don't know. 1 hour, 5 minutes, 19 seconds. Somewhat one of my favourite Superman the Animated Series character. Oh, Spider-Man, excuse me. I was like, Superman's not hyphenated, but Spider-Man is. Because he wrote S-M, the animated series. Asner's J. Jonah Jameson. Surprisingly tragic backstory involving his wife also helps, though I wish said wife's demise got more panache, so to equal the quality of BTAS's Flying Grayson's fall. Oh yeah, Eddie Brock somehow got back in the Daily Bugle according to some trivia for X-Men 97. Would like to see how the hell that happened. 1 hour and 6 minutes and 2 seconds. The love triangle grated me so bad when rewatching it. Hell, even I think the show could have done better by keeping Peter Parker ex Felicia, since Mary Jane and Morbius just weren't that romantically interesting folk in the mature hindsight. 1 hour and 6 and 18 seconds. Good old Crawford, likeable enough that Peter Parker, angsting about his condition and bad-mouthing the woman who's supposed to help him get out of his man-spider funk, also grated me. Gods, that shows Spidey is not the definitive take on the hero for me. I'd prefer Tobey Maguire's iteration or the two Spider-Verse Peters. Yeah, they're good. An hour, lots of comments on this hour and 6 minutes, at 25 seconds at that time point. For me, it's the S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives, particularly Agent X. He's crossed out Black Widow. Hour and 6 and 42, a sentiment I don't share. An hour and 6 at 52. Yondu, on the other hand, is a sentiment I share. He may not be a father boy, but he sure was a daddy. An hour and 8:25.
Daddy.
Mm-hmm. Depends on Western animation. For every BTAS and Rugrats has a Fantastic Four or Ren and Stimpy. Yes, not a huge fan of the latter, despite the gross hype. Meanwhile, Japanese anime has created countless gems in that decade, most of whom have aged phenomenally well, enough that obvious flaws are either overlooked because the rest of the material is just so good. And that is the end of Big Mikey P's latest novel.
Always a pleasure.
Next, we have Lowell Lucas Jr., who says, "Hey, today it's totally Schway. Alien farm boys are here, so let's go save the day.
Yeah.
High school drama on the way." Yeah.
Yeah. Truth.
Here's a quick jingle for Smallville reviews if you'd like. You don't have to, but it was fun to write. Oh,
I love it.
okay, he said, "Teenage alien country farm boy saving the day from bolding bad guys. Teenage alien country farm boy, undies on the outside. Superpower."
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Undies on the outside. Oh God, is that gonna be my hyperfixation now?
Yeah, maybe.
Like I'm gonna go around while we're like in Asda or something like undies on the outside.
Superpower.
Yeah, for my boy.
Just wanted to thank you all for the well wishes
I
as
love
I
it.
recover from surgery.
Good.
I'm currently healing, but it's been hard. I have to take breaks from drawing, avoiding social media altogether to not strain my eyes, and even had a scare as my eyes would become cloudy. Luckily, I was able to make emergency appointments right away. While healing, I was able to catch up with Penguin and Creature Commandos. I love both shows, especially seeing Clancy Brown in Pengy.
Yeah.
I will say the low episode count does affect the endings. Felt rushed and left a lot unresolved. Penguin's just a little asshole mama boy who'll get his comeuppance in a rich boy, or by a rich boy in tight pajamas, while Creature Commandos left way too many unresolved questions. Well, good job there's a season 2. Such a shame, but at least one will get another season so long as that Scrooge exec Zaslav doesn't start cutting shows again, but we'll see. I'll be honest, I avoided Smallville back in the day like the plague. Early 2000s drama had this awful sterilized feel to them, and even a comic adaptation wouldn't be anything like what we get currently. It was a time producers still didn't trust nor like the absurdity of comics, and only cherry-picked elements that they felt comfortable to adapt into their narrative. My only regret was not buying the beautiful Alex Ross TV Guide covers at grocery stores, as I saw them only once and never again, sadly. Now on to your topic of 90s cartoons. They friggin' rocked. They were finally able to get an edge on storytelling and narrative unlike anything before, whether it be continuing shows from the 80s like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles getting more mature, Garfield's snark or sarcasm, or even overseas influence such as Dragon Ball to Zed, Sailor Moon, Card Captors. It was amazing. Anime and American cartoons got to tell stories with great consequences and were not trying to hold your hand. Personally, I think Margaret Loesch, who not only shook up things with the execs, they foolishly thought kids couldn't handle mature stories with trauma, but also became the executive of production for our favourite shows such as X-Men the Animated Series, the entire Batman the Animated Series, yes, even New Adventures, Superman, Justice League, Batman Beyond, Tiny Toons, Goof Troop, and even started the Hub Network with Transformers Prime. I just want to throw out there too that Gargoyles, Pirates of Darkwater, and SWAT Cats were overlooked gems. I hope they get revisited one day because they were amazing stories. On to other comments. Luke and Mary, excellent coverage on Bullet for Bullock and Dr. Phosphorus. Both excellent discussions and just wonderful episodes. Also, I did check out that hour-long episode of Cape Crusader video from Watchtower. Loving You and Watchtower are complementary to one another. Also, Mary, you turned down the first Venom appearance. That's some classic McFarlane issue. He's the reason Spider-Man became more dynamic and made Marvel editors angry.
If you saw my loft, my attic at the moment, you would be like, you know what? I get it. Actually, no, I kind of I'm kind of not getting it now. We should go back and get it. It's probably gone now.
Just goes to show you not everyone has to be adopting the John Romita Sr. style, I assume, to be successful. Okay, enough artist talk, but I want to thank you both once again. I'll be resting now, but appreciate the coverage as I heal. Also, have you both shared your thoughts on Fleischer's Superman? Just curious, as I love the shorts, and thank their influences on BTAS as well as Alex Toth with Space Ghost. Dang, I'm talking art again.
Oh, Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Yeah. Fleischer's stuff, some of it is very dated. Still wonderful animation, but some of it is like, it is pretty racist, actually. Like depictions of Africans and the Japanese, for instance.
Those
they were of their time, let's put it that way.
I had asked Luke, I think it was after we watched Smallville, like where you could find those, and he said YouTube, and that is one thing that I think, I'm not usually the type of person that can't watch something, but I am, with like the political climate and everything, I'd have to have Luke go in and like tell me which episodes to skip, because I would get quite
Yeah, there's
emotional.
only two that I can think of that you
Yeah,
probably skip. Although I think there is one that's got a bit of a negative depiction of Native Americans as well. But
that's one that would be big for me.
everything in the
Uh,
40s did. So
yeah.
it's of its time.
Hmm.
But again, the animation was beautiful.
Yeah.
Um,
I've seen a little snippets of it. I do want to watch it, but it's just like I said, you'd have to go in and
yeah.
watch before me.
When I was in primary school, which is what school do you go to when you're 7 years old in America?
Grade school.
Grade school. So basically, it's the equivalent of grade school. They would do like one day a year. They'd do like a movie day where we'd go sit in the assembly hall and they'd get the projector out and put up a screen and play, some child appropriate movies. And the first one I went to, the first thing they put on was the first Fleischer Superman short with the scientist that had a raven that kidnapped Lois Lane. And I very vividly remember that going, wow, this is amazing. I know it's old because just from the way it looks, but it's really cool. But anyway, we're going to move on to Doc Widener's comment because actually this episode is running long. So where am I? It's Doc Widener's comment.
Doc!
Who says, thank goodness you're here. I probably should have watched the Smallville episode before this because I don't think I've seen it in over 20 years. We were living in DC at the time. Detective Comics he was living in? No, he means Washington, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We were living in DC at the time, and I recall seeing posters on the bus stops that I walked past on my way to work each morning from Metro Centre or Farragut North to Georgetown. I was a bit intrigued, but wasn't sure. The missus and I gave it a shot and really enjoyed it. A few of the actors might now be on Santa's naughty list. That's an understatement. But not so much that I don't still have fond memories of the show. Yeah, it probably ran a few seasons too long, but it told some really good stories, and I like the idea of Clark feeling a responsibility for cleaning up the mess he inadvertently brought with him. Wrote all of this before watching a moment of your video. Oh dear. I don't think his X-ray vision I don't think his X-ray vision in the girls' locker room ever comes up, but I think there was a sort of a hot for teacher type episode where the teacher ends up being a villain, as they always do.
Obviously.
But I may be mixing that episode up with the Buffy episode because both teachers used pheromones, if I recall rightly. But Clark may have X-rayed her clothes. I don't know. I don't know it was where his heat vision first showed up because it was a metaphor for something else about boys that age struggling to understand and contain. Smallville, as I recall, followed the Buffy X-Files model of Monster of the Week. There may have been a bit of a season-long story, but like other shows from the era, it would wander away from the season-long story. Also, I recall an interview with Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling where Rosenbaum was complaining about the workout he had to do because he had a shirtless scene, and Tom being unsympathetic because he constantly had to do that because they looked for every excuse for his shirt to be ripped, burned, or whatever else to have him shirtless. It's nice that those two have stayed close all these years. One last thought on the show. I recall there was always a feeling I had that if Clark had been honest with Lex early on, they might have become allies instead of enemies. At least I felt that is the way they wrote it, but I haven't rewatched it since watching it live. Alright, one more thought. Was Chloe not in the episode very much? She struck me as a character Mary... I've just lost my place. She struck me as a character Mary would like. Alison may be one of those folks on the naughty list, though not for her beliefs, but for actual stuff.
Yeah, is that the blonde one with the hair, the flipped hair? I think it was.
But I loved her Lois, but not Lois Lane. I don't know now.
I'm thinking of the wrong character.
Maybe. She ends up a lot more like the DCAU Lana in that sense that Clark seems completely clueless about how she felt about him. Arrowverse. Enjoyed Arrow and Flash. Supergirl had its ups and downs, same for Batwoman. As I've said elsewhere, Black Lightning was its own thing until it wasn't. I think it was better off cut off. But I loved especially the later seasons of Legends of Tomorrow. Reminded me of the post-crisis Justice League, especially the humour of those books. Glad to hear that Lowell Lucas Jr. is recovering well from his eye surgery.
Me too.
No, BFE is bum or butt F Egypt. Just a Midwestern way of saying the middle of nowhere.
Yep, I know that phrase.
See, we would say BF nowhere. But anyway. Here I am in BFE with a flat tire and no cell service.
Yep.
Unlike the others, I often almost wake up to you on Sundays with these shows if I'm lucky. I get through it before I take Daniel to PSR, Parish School of Religion, aka Sunday School. Mm-hmm. We Catholics, of course, have to have our own name. Well, I mean, to be fair, I think Catholics, at least for the European side of things, they were established long before us dirty Protestants came along and sullied things up.
There You know what was really strange about where I grew up? I can tell everybody where I grew up because nobody lives there anymore. I grew up in Midwest City, Oklahoma, and there I literally grew up right like 2 streets away from an all girls Catholic school. And can I tell you this? I just wanted to go to that school so bad just because it was gated. Is that bad?
Yes.
No, that's not the only thing, but I always found it really great because I don't know if it's like this with all Catholic schools or whatever, but there was always really lovely music coming from there. And I don't know if that's just because we when we drove by, it must have been like by their music room or something, but there was always really great music and I liked it. That's all.
Okay, well, I'm going to continue the comment. It used to be called CCD, Confraternity of Christian Doctrine. Used to be at 10 a.m. between the morning masses, but now it's at 11:45 to 1 p.m., which really wrecks a Sunday. Yes, I felt very similarly about Sunday, school and church in general. That's why I stopped going.
I never did stuff like that.
Good.
Sundays were for football.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. I wasn't really into football either.
So as I continue rewatching S-TAS, I have a couple of thoughts and questions. Superman's pal? Worse than I've got Batman in my basement? I think I finally get your dislike for Jimmy, but I would love it if Luke clearly laid it out. Well, listen, I think the animation is also bad in that episode. Jimmy Olsen is just like a sleazy little dweeb, completely clueless. I mean, he does try his best. He does try to help Superman. Like in the Parasite episode, it's him that turns up to try and free Superman from Parasite's pervy basement. But I don't know. There are other iterations of Jimmy Olsen that I think are fine and are quite enjoyable. Like the comic book Jimmy Olsen's mostly all right. I like it when he goes on like these strange adventures and turns into a turtle or an elastic boy or whatever. But the animated version of him was just such a creep, like in the Volcano episode where he takes a picture of her at the museum exhibition and he goes, "This is one for my personal collection." I like,
Yeah.
Olsen Spank Bank. I don't need to hear about that.
A what?
Don't worry.
I'm sure I've heard that phrase before, but I don't think I've ever heard you say that before.
I don't need to know that exists.
La la la. I'm gonna go watch Skinamax now.
Finally, I think this is most of the comment was written 8 hours ago. This paragraph was a late addition. Unity. Any ideas lifted from Fallout 1? Timing. Fallout released in 97, this episode in 99, just have me wondering. I don't think so. I think it's just a very common like sci-fi idea about a parasite coming and taking over a small community. I think of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or what was that other one? Children of the Corn? Was Children of the Corn about little alien landing and taking over?
No, Korn is a band from the late
Freak on a Leash, yeah.
early 2000s. That's Korn.
I don't recall a Unity in the comics, but had stopped reading by that point. Hive minds are not new to DC, but the name makes me wonder. I'm sure it's a coincidence, but that timing. Yeah. Never know. You never know. Thank you for your comment, Doc Widener.
Thank you. Always, honestly, like some of my favorite people are in this comic section. Honestly. Mm-hmm. I say that every week, but it's just like I really enjoy hearing from you guys.
Next, we have Zehanot10, who says the best characters in Smallville are Lex and Lionel, but the worst one is Lana, who half the characters call amazing for no reason, despite her not doing anything amazing, which is because the original producers were creepily obsessed with her actress to the point that they cast Lana before they cast Clark. A Superman prequel show, and they cast his high school girlfriend first. Gasp.
Gasp. Gasp.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have any strong feelings about Lana either way, frankly.
What, Lana? The
girl with the kryptonite necklace.
Yeah, I know who Lana is. Okay. I think I would have liked her. I should probably watch more of it. Mm-hmm. But for some reason I thought they were talking about the blonde lady. The blonde lady, I can't get over the fact about her personal life.
Was it her that was in the cult?
I believe so.
It might not have been. I don't know.
I believe it is.
I haven't looked into it because I don't really care, to be honest.
But I can't get over that, and that was like overwhelming in my head. But the lady that played Lana, she seemed pretty cool.
All right, so next we have David Carney. Hello, David. Hope you're well. He says, "Hi, Mary and Luke. Hope you both had a great week. Highlight of my week was Joe Hendry finally becoming TNA World Champion. Royal Rumble, here he comes." I got into Smallville towards the end, which was season 9 episode about the JSA. This is my second favourite Superman show behind Superman and Lois, which I highly recommend. Keep up the great work, both of you. Yeah, I've heard lots of good things about Superman and Lois. Somebody posted a Superman and Lois big spoiler in the comments on, I think, on Totally Schway. It might even be in here, actually. And I gasped when they posted that comment. I hadn't been reading any spoilers around it because I did intend to watch it at some point. But anyway, we can move on from that. Mary's just been Googling which Smallville actor was sent to prison for her role in a cult, and it was the blonde lady, was it?
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah. So his good friend.
I don't know nothing else about that person, but it was just the fact that, I get it. It's probably part of my neurodivergent mind that's the only thing I could think about when she was on screen.
Well, I'm just reading there that she was sentenced to 3 years in prison on Wednesday, the 30th of June of 2021.
She's probably out.
Yeah, she'll be out by now then. Charges she manipulated women into becoming okay. I'm not reading any more of that.
She probably got out on good behavior too, because you could probably get your sentence down by at least a third.
Yeah, she was out in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Lindsay Lohan was, I think she only spent like 6 days in jail. So the American prison system, eh?
Yeah, just got to cry enough in front of the judge. Keeping notes for when I end up in front of the judge.
That is not what happened. It's called overcrowding.
Oh, okay. Next, we have Harry Flew TV, who says 2419. If he lost his powers by getting wet, that means he's completely useless now. For reals, though, I have yet to watch this show, so originally I was going to skip out on this episode in case of spoilers, but knowing me, by the time I get to watch Smallville, I'll probably forget what was said in this episode, lol. I mean, fair enough, it's only been a week and I've forgotten what we said. Okay, and then the last comment is from A1ML33Y, Julia Raoul, who says, "Hello, Mary, Marvel," and can't really quite tell what this word is. Fire Grumpy Cat Luke. Well, I mean, the Grumpy Cat part is accurate.
Yeah.
It's me, Julia, writing my 2 cents about the Superboy show of the 2000s and the birth of the CW DC universe called Smallville. First, I want to say I like how the show sets up the Luthor family and the dynamic father-son moments between Lex and Lionel. It kind of reminds me of what Lex looked like in the comics when he had hair in his clone body. Yes, yeah, the lustrous hair and beard combo. But he's not a redhead. I like how John Glover plays him in this series, very cold and calculating, testing his son Lex with his various schemes in the show. I like how Michael Rosenbaum played Lex in that you can feel sorry for him, but at the same time you can see shades of what he would become in the post-crisis era of comics from the 90s. I also like that Lex Luthor from Lois and Clark was played by John Shea. His Lex also had hair, but I like how arch and arrogant he was until he died and came back to life in hiding in that show's continuity. I liked Tom Welling as Clark Kent in this show and his love affair with Lana Lang and later with Lois in this series. I kind of watched this for the soap opera and seeing how they were going to remix the classic Superman villains who are mutated by kryptonite for some reason for the Monster of the Week. This show to me felt like the comics. Only thing missing was the costume that Superman always wore, obviously expectingly it in the show, but we never got it. I have fond memories of watching the show with my mother in the 2000s because she was into geeky stuff like myself, and every time she would ask me who's this character, I would get my copy of the DC Comics Encyclopedia and bring it up to her who this character was in the episode. I also did the same thing when we watched the CW Flash, Supergirl and Batwoman and Black Lightning. Yeah, stuff that DC Warner Brothers did like this I enjoyed because of the larger storylines and character development from season to season. I will admit I geeked out whenever I saw Linda Carter in these shows. Christopher Reeve, Annette O'Toole, Bill Duke, etc. as supporting characters. I like him in Supergirl, where at least we get to see Mama Luthor and Sister Luthor, Lena, and Miss Tessmacher, her and Otis. Yeah, you can tell Superman, Supergirl, and Friends are my favourites. Superman to me as a kid felt way more like big. I think there's a typo in this word. like a big deal next to Wonder Woman over Batman sometimes, but I like them as a team instead of fighting each other, or in Batman's case, plotting against them out of paranoia, like in Tower of Babel. Excuse me. Anyways, I've rambled on too long, but I will say this. Henry Cavill wasn't a great Superman because he came across as a cold, joyless murderer who killed and acted more like a villain than a hero. That's why I don't like him, Mary. He snaps necks and destroys cities. But I'm looking forward to the new James Gunn movie. And Luke, I have a question. Should I keep reading Absolute Superman? Is it worth reading? I've stopped on issue 2. And I'm hoping it will lighten up. Same with Wonder Woman. Like, will he ever get a dog in this universe? Will he save a cat out of a tree in the Absolute Universe? Or is the Absolute Universe a no fun zone? So listen, he does have a dog. He does have a dog. Krypto is in Absolute Superman number 3. The thing is, when he's on Earth, we don't know what's happened to the rest of his family and the dog. He seems to be separated from them. And I would say, if you're going into the Absolute comics, which are set in a universe that is created by Darkseid and very intentionally leans towards the negative in an effort to break down the heroes, I think you will probably be disappointed. But part of what I enjoy about these books is seeing how, despite all of these limitations and just the way the universe is completely against them, they are pushing back, and they are still very recognizably the characters that they would have been in any other universe. And I particularly like Absolute Wonder Woman because, yeah, okay, she's got a massive sword and fights demons and so on, but she is very kind and she is very loving, and she immediately makes friends with people. Like in the latest issue, she meets Etta Candy and her sister, whose name I've forgotten, and just immediately says to them, like, I can tell I'm going to like you. And they like her straight away. But again, if you prefer the more light-hearted stuff, stick with that. Don't force yourself to read stuff that you don't like because I like it. We're all allowed to like different things.
Can I tell you what the video after next was going to be? Well, it's probably still going to be. Why Henry Cavill is one of my favorite live-action Superman.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree that Superman destroys cities and murders people. He did kill General Zod, but remember, in the comics, he executed General Zod as well with kryptonite. And in this case, yeah, he broke his neck because Zod literally said, "I'm never going to stop. I am never going to stop, ever." And he was going to burn that family to death. So Superman made the decision: do I let those 3 innocent people die, or do I kill General Zod? And he was like, well, I guess I'm going to break Zod's neck. And he did it, and he hated it.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about that in my video.
Yeah, okay.
But that's okay. See, that's one of the things I love about this, is because we can have differences, but we're not the type of friends that are just going to stop talking to each other because of that. Because you actually tell me why that's different, and it's a constructive thing rather than somebody just telling me, like, I don't like Superman, you need to go away, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. No, you beautifully explained why you didn't like something, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's right. And you don't have to feel the same way as us, and it's completely fine that you don't. Not a problem at all.
It's actually great because then we have somebody to talk to about these things, and there's 2 sides to everything, at least 2 sides to everything. And it's nice to know that not everybody feels the same way.
Yeah, so those are all of the comments.
Oh.
Yeah, so my voice is on the verge of breaking again.
Is this the longest episode we've done?
Of Flipside, yeah, I think so. We normally do like 45 minutes to an hour, and it's nearly an hour and a half.
Okay, so our next episode, what is it going to be about?
You had the list up. You said for Flipside it was going to be favourite Batman music.
Oh, yes, because of Doc.
Yeah, I believe Doc Widener suggested that, and you were like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I think the music in all of the Batmans, whether that's from the 60s Batman all the way to Cape Crusader, it's so important to the actual show.
Yes.
So, or movie. We got to talk about Prince.
So we're basically just going to say favourite Batman music.
Yeah.
Not limit it to the movies.
Let's limit it to the movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just be going, Shirley Walker, Shirley Walker.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
But then again, she did score 1 Batman movie, so I can talk about it then.
Yes. Of course we're gonna talk about Shirley Walker anyway. We can't talk about anything Batman musical without talking about her. She's fabulous.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about how annoyed Danny Elfman gets when people say that Shirley Walker did all of the work for his score, which she did.
Sorry, Danny.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I love you. I hope you guys are keeping safe. Because it's getting cold outside and spring seems to never want to come back.
It is only February.
I mean, spring. And hopefully next time it won't be an hour and a half. I love you guys and have a great day, night, afternoon.